this with him now. Let's see. Are you on at all, or how are we? Oh, it's actually recording already. It's fine. Copy link invite. Yeah, we're good.
I'm here. I hung up on you. Hi,
Oh, no,
Deja.
no worries. I'm here too. Oh, thank you. I just sent him the right one. I'm perfect. Do you want me to kick us off, Marinka?
Sure. Sure thing.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Pragya. I'm a volunteer for the IEEE Cloud Summit, but also leading or one of the co-leads for the industry track this year. I want to, before we get into introducing Steve, who's our guest speaker today, I want to remind everyone, please take the time, and if you're interested to register for the IEEE Cloud Summit that is coming up here in June in Washington, D.C., you can also serve as a volunteer. So reach out to us, use the LinkedIn post where there's links to that event where you can join us. With that, anything else I missed on the event, Marinka? Otherwise, I'll go ahead.
We'll get right to it. I'm sure if you follow us on LinkedIn, then we'll be able to share any information and more information about the summit itself and other ways of participating in.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And with that, I will introduce Steve McDonald. I'm sharing a very cool slide that Steve put together as an introduction, and I will put it on screen share if I can. But quickly to introduce Steve, he is he's a leader at Amazon Web Services, and I have the privilege to work with him very closely. He's had a very long, established professional career outside and before Amazon as well, but just at Amazon, he's been there a little over 8 years, I think, and currently is the director for solutions architecture for a division called the Cloud Sales Center. He leads a very large org and a very diverse org, and so I thought, how cool would it be if Steve came and shared a little bit about what his team does at AWS, how his team brings in new talent at AWS and helps bring them in, grow them, thrive at Amazon as well. And then, just kind of leave some words of wisdom about your professional journey as well. So thank you for joining us, Steve.
Yeah, well, the pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, I do get the good fortune to work with Pragya and team as we've been inventing for the last year or so, new ways to engage our customers across our Cloud Sales Center. Super excited to be here. Great to meet everyone. My name's Steve McDonald. As Pragya said, I have been with AWS for a long time. And as Pragya was also saying, yes, I've been in this industry for a very, very long time, longer than I like to even admit at this point in my life. But no, I'm someone who was super fortunate. I grew up with my hands on keyboard. I've been in technology first as a hobby, then as a career, really my whole life. And it was sort of unique. I grew up in Tampa, Florida. I'm a military brat. So I live in Atlanta, Georgia now, but I'm a military brat. And my dad actually opened up what we've all know now as Central Command down in MacDill Air Force Base. And so I got to spend 2 full tours down there. And NASA was investing in, we didn't have the term STEM in the mid 80s, but essentially one of the early STEM programs. And so I got to get my hands on an Atari 800 in 3rd grade, and I spent most of my elementary school career doing that. I realized in many cases I knew more than the grown-ups, and so that there was probably some, financial opportunity, as I was often asked to help out, and just sort of parlayed that into a little bit of consulting. I ran my own small company, small business for a little while I was in college. And then as I was in college, just got involved in various facets of the industry, doing implementation work, getting into the startup world, where I spent many years in what we like to refer to inside of the tech industry as the channel. I was a business partner for the IBMs, the Ciscos, the Dells of the world, helping them, build solutions for their customers and sort of implementing those solutions in customers. I ran IT for a number of years for one of those companies, and then got super lucky. I like to say I got my MBA transitioning into a large publicly traded version of a reseller in North America, where I took on marketing and business development responsibilities, actually leading those relationships with those key data center partners across our business. And it's just super fortunate to get a whole different perspective on the IT and IT services industry as a leader of business development, marketing, and what we would call channel relationships. I spent a little bit of time in the startup world on the software side, between sort of that partner world and then joining AWS back in 2016. So worn a lot of hats as I've moved through the industry. And, I've actually put here my LinkedIn profile. And so one of my favorite things I love to do, as Pragya knows, I am super passionate about connecting with folks and sort of, whether yours is an IT career or any other career, just sort of getting to know folks through the LinkedIn network and sort of keeping up with folks. So I encourage anyone on the call, feel free to snap my QR code down there. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. And so sort of a way for us to get to know each other and sort of see what's going on in our mutual sort of careers. And then also a way for you to see things that are going on at AWS, as I am a very active LinkedIn poster, whether that's for career opportunities, initiatives that AWS is involved in across, those sort of many facets of the tech industry that we participate in, as well as Amazon at large. I've got some photos here. I won't go into all of them, but I will say my dear little daughter, Grace, my son, Edwin, and my wife, Kelly, you can see we like to hang out near the ocean when we can. My kids love Waffle House when mom's not around. Mom doesn't love Waffle House, so it's only ever the three of us who get to go there when we go there. And then we love to spend time outside. In the top right there, that's reInvent. That's our annual AWS customer conference, where we get to go spend time with our customers. And those are actually folks from the CSC who are relatively early in their careers as solutions architects, but are there at reInvent because they were a part of actually delivering content to our customers there at reInvent. And so I get a huge amount of energy, not just from going to reInvent to spend a bunch of time with our customers, but to take 30 or 40 of our own team members to reInvent each year to watch them engage with our customers and see the cool things that come from that. So a little background on me, and I'm super excited to be here because, as I said, I know a lot of people on this call are in different sort of stages of looking at tech as a career, or maybe you're in tech as a career and you're sort of considering AWS. And my passion is helping make that connection between people wherever they are and sort of their careers, what industries they're in today, and opportunities within AWS. So it's really exciting for me to be here with you today.
Awesome. Thank you for these lovely pictures as well, Steve. I love it. And Marinka, I'll let you monitor the chat if there's questions, but otherwise I'll move to a question. If you'd share a little bit about what your team does, what is the role of the solution architecture, solution architect? And then, looking at early career talent, what kind of skills do you look for when you hire into your team?
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. And solutions architecture is a pretty broad term, right? And so if you look across the tech industry, it means a lot of things. But the simplest way to think about it is our teams exist to engage with our customers or our potential customers, right? So we've got a lot of customers, and there's a lot of companies and public sector entities that are out there that we don't actually interact with. And so regardless of the circumstances, to meet the customer, to understand the customer, and really to focus on understanding what's the customer's business problem. And you would say, well, hey, I thought we were talking about tech roles and tech responsibilities. And I will say, yes, these are super technical people. But with over 250 services in all of what AWS has to offer for customers, it's not just important to be a technical expert in one or more areas within all of the products that we have available to our customers, but it's also really important to be empathetic with our customers. And so we really start with understanding where our customers are and what sort of problems they need to solve, and then converting that understanding. Once we sort of get to an agreement, we like to say we ask the 5 whys. So when a customer says something, we ask why. When they answer that question, well, we tend to ask why again, and we'll go through that, really trying to get to the heart of what's really the problem, right? And what do we really need to solve before we ever try to apply technology. And so then taking that technological expertise, both of the individual who is the solutions architect, but as well as all of the other solutions architects and the network of folks that surround, our individuals and the support for their customers, to then move towards okay, well, we understand that you have a problem. We have a picture of sort of our best practices, either from an industry lens or from a, size and scope and scale of your issue lens, where we've had solutions to these problems before, and we'll work with you then. A solutions architect will work with the customer to then start to get to what tech solution might actually begin to solve that problem, and bring their expertise to design that solution, to help the customer understand the technology that underpins that solution, and ultimately to help that customer, whether it's with our partners, our business partners across our industry, or with our professional services, or by the customer themselves, help them get the knowledge they need to successfully implement those technologies.
Makes sense. That's a great description. If you don't mind, also talking a little bit about the size of the team that you have, and then also, as folks might be interested, what kind of skills do you look for when you look to hire into your org in the role of solution architects?
Yeah, it's a great question, because the Cloud Sales Center is a little bit unique, right? And so if you were to look at the brief history that AWS has existed, and by the way, that's only 18 years, right? And so it isn't very long in the context of my life. And so in that brief history of AWS, if you looked at this role just like 5 or 6 years ago, even, the solutions architect had to have done all of the stuff, right? Like they needed to maybe be at a customer or be at a partner, and they needed to have a lot of experience in the tech industry to sort of move towards being a solutions architect, because, that was just where we were in the journey, right? We had to, bring what experience existed in the landscape into the organization. You fast forward to today, Cloud Sales Center's unique mission is finding folks who maybe don't identify as solutions architects, but are curious and interested in helping them take that journey, right? And so, to the question, what does that look like? And I will say a lot of people in our organization, which is around 350 folks in North America today, give or take, and that's a moving target, because we actually build solutions architects and help export those solutions architects to other parts of AWS, to business partners external to AWS, and sometimes even to customers who need to build their own stuff. But we're interested in people who are super curious, right? Who love to learn and are interested in, as I mentioned earlier, solving problems, right? And sometimes those are folks who already have technical backgrounds, right? They have had similar to me, they had a hobby or an interest, or maybe in college they chose to take a traditional tech trajectory for a degree. But we also, in the idea of being curious and being passionate and wanting to help customers, we find lots of people who are in other careers. And so we have programs that help people change careers. In fact, one of our most talked about successes in helping a customer in the last few weeks, and I can't go into the details because it's not publicly referenced, but the person who did that a year and a half ago, well, 2 years ago now, was a chef. And so they happened to be a military spouse, and they came through our military veterans program, engaged with us, took some self training, and then went through our programs, developed as a solutions architect, and then helped a very well-known ticket seller figure out how to better sell tickets in the industry, and implement some really sophisticated generative AI solutions that help their customers have a better engagement with that ticketing experience. And that's a person who, 2-3 years ago just didn't identify as someone who would be in the tech industry at all, but had that curiosity, that passion, that interest, and we helped them take that journey.
Awesome. I love that story. Marinka, I want to be just cognizant of inclusion. Was there any questions, or should I go with my next question? Looking at the chat.
Well, I had a question, maybe on behalf of the students around what specific skills and experiences or projects does a student or should a student focus on getting exposure to, and that would stand out if they were
Yeah.
interested in doing more of this?
Yeah. The simple answer is data, which is not really a simple answer, but at the core of so much of what happens in a customer today, and what's interesting and important to the customer today, because we're kind of always doing one of three things. Either we're launching a new business initiative, right? This is from the customer's lens. We're dramatically improving our operational efficiency by streamlining the way we do things, or we're improving our customers' customer experience, right? And so we might, you'll hear that referred to as a net promoter score, and trying to improve, a net promoter score. And so across all three of those things that we're doing day in and day out with our customers, it's always the data that really sort of matters to making better decisions, to bringing new value propositions to market, to improving based on what we know about our customers' experience in the data, that experience that the customer has with us, to retain that customer, right? Or to create new value add services if we're in a services model. And so much of that really is reliant on not just the data itself, but how is the data organized, right? Do we have a strategy that says, oh, we have all the files that are in our file systems, but we have relational databases as well. We have non-relational databases. And so understanding those different facets of data is just a really good starting place to start to look across, the vast amount of data our customers have, and help them think about organizing it. And it's also a really good foundation, because really any application or any workload that runs in the cloud, it will have data, it will interact with data. And that's just one of those things that can lead down an analytics road, that can lead towards a machine learning road, that can lead towards lots of different facets of customer need. And it's probably that one thing that everybody should take the opportunity to fundamentally understand, not necessarily be an expert in data, but understand how it exists, why it exists, and then you can build in a lot of different directions, as the IT landscape is a vast landscape of a lot of different technologies, all circling around that core data conversation.
Yeah, that's super helpful, Steve, because I get that question asked as well. Like, what skills I'm curious to be learning and diving deep. What's an area? Because there are many, and I agree,
Yeah.
data very much prevalent to a lot of things that are happening. Thank you for that. I'm going to switch a little bit in terms of my questions. Talking about, the organization, you have a large organization you've led in the past as well. When you look to get talent and you look to, grow your team, why is diversity of thought important? I've seen you in action. You are very intentional about it. Why is that? And what results have you seen by being that way?
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question, and it's so vitally important to the success for our customers. It's vitally important to the success for Amazon, right? And that's to say that when you get five people in a room who all have exactly the same backgrounds, exactly the same perspectives on life, live in the same area, do the same stuff on the weekends, you're kind of in a position where you walk in that room where your brain jumps to some pretty quick assumptions about what everybody wants to talk about, right? And sort of where a question you might ask might go in terms of the responses you're going to get. And frankly, in an organization like ours, and in an organization where we're helping our customers leverage innovation to thrive as a business, well, that doesn't help, right? Because it's the diversity of thought, it's the different perspectives that bring to the conversation the new, the fresh, the different lens on a conversation that perhaps has been talked about for a long time, but hasn't really matured. And so when I think about building teams, to me, it's important that the team we're building looks like the customers we're servicing, right? And the better job we do at that, right? The better when we're challenging ourselves to think bigger, to innovate at scale, we've got more voices, right? And I don't know that there's a number if it's ever adequate, right? Because you want to constantly challenge your thinking, and so we continuously look to bring fresh perspectives into every conversation. And so when we think about hiring, it's not always the collegiate path, right? We do hire quite a few folks straight out of college, but as I mentioned earlier, we also go to places that maybe are, we like to use the term untapped talent opportunities. And it's those folks who are curious where we have a program called Reach Back that we did there in HQ2 in Arlington a few months ago, where we had, I think, 90 women and allies join there. And a lot of the folks who had joined for that event weren't really, they were curious about AWS, but they weren't really looking at a tech career, or perhaps they were in another career and just not fulfilled in that particular career. And it's just a great example of some of the folks who joined that organization are folks who just didn't see themselves as technologists and have brought very interesting and new perspectives into the conversation. And yeah, we continue to focus on going to places that aren't the obvious places, and finding the voices that I think just help us have the most well-rounded perspective for our customers.
Yeah, I agree. It's not just, it's good for business. So
100%.
I appreciate that. Yeah. For anyone here, if you'd like to know more about the Reach Back program that Steve mentioned, or the Untapped Talent program, you can reach out to me, or you can reach out to Steve here as well. Happy to share kind of resources when it takes place, etc. Any questions? I want to make sure. I know Mirinka's not here. Bingwei, do you see any questions in the chat?
No.
Or did you have a question since you came
I
off mute?
do want to ask also, maybe on behalf, if I was a student, maybe I would want to know, hey, what kind of courses I should take or should I even prepare for this? Or like, should I get a certificate, right? If you want to increase the chance of me being hired as a solution engineer.
Yeah. Well, like I said, curiosity is everything, right? And so do you have to have a tech degree? No. We hire often people with business degrees, other degrees, no degrees, right? And so we're not limited to any one direction there. That said, one of the things that is maybe one of our most obvious indicators of cloud curiosity is something we call the cloud practitioner certification, right? And now there's even a generative AI practitioner certification. And what's unique about the practitioner certifications is they're practitioner, not expert, right? And so it's an opportunity to delve into getting to a baseline of understanding of either cloud technologies or generative AI technologies. And I would say those are great ways to augment whatever natural learning path you're on. And I think in some ways that leads to decisions about maybe things you might find that you're curious about that you didn't know about that would augment, a particular class that you might want to take that wasn't on the radar. And I'll give a salient example quickly. One of our CSCSAs 2 years ago joined our organization, and that person was on a biotech degree path. They were in that degree path during the pandemic, and during the pandemic, they took a class on Python, right? And it was just an absolute, it's summertime, I can't go anywhere anyway. I was just curious about Python. And that person found that they were absolutely in love with writing script then, which turned into code, which actually turned into an interest in encryption and blockchain. And, that flourished into somebody who they actually changed their degree path from that bio degree to a computer science degree, right? But there's other people who've taken those courses, finished a business associate's degree, but have gotten enough technology to see that interest. And so just an illustration of just sometimes that exposure through something like a practitioner certification might give you some new ideas about classes you might want to take to dive a little bit deeper in something that interests you.
That's great. Would you recommend to, I know I have experience in solution. So would you recommend to learn some networking knowledge, because that is kind of a lot of problem coming from in a company, that when you need to communicate between the company and cloud, right? You need to know the basics, and a lot of times you just if you don't know, then maybe you can learn on the spot. But I always find that I rarely find people who has good networking knowledge at work.
You know, it's an interesting question, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And 3 years ago, I probably would have said, well, maybe even 4 years ago, I would have said, yeah, it's absolutely a core skill.
Yep.
We continue to automate some of that complexity out of we like to say we're always trying to automate out the undifferentiated heavy lifting. And networking is an example of a place where we continue to invest in simplifying and simplifying and simplifying to get someone to the point where, you know, that's less what they have to be concerned with, and more, again, it comes back to the data, the analytics, and the what's going to sit on that network. But there's certainly, yeah, it's a amazing core skill to have for all things technology.
Yeah.
I see a hand has gone up as well.
Great. First hand up. Good. Good for you. Okay.
Yeah.
With a minute left. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi Steve. So I'm a master's student in information systems here at Syracuse University, and I'll be graduating this May. I have done a course on Bedrock, and also last summer I did an internship in prompt engineering using Claude and SageMaker. So I had a question for you, from your experience, what are the best practices when building Gen AI products that need to balance customization with maintainability across the customers? So
What, if you could repeat that last part, I'm sorry,
yeah,
I got
sure.
distracted.
So what are the best practices when building Gen AI products that need to balance customization with maintainability across customers?
Best practices. Well, I mean, that's a very fast evolving conversation, right?
Yeah.
And so I think my answer to that conversation is, you know, probably even a better answer than I gave for coursework. But if there was one thing that everyone on this call might do to learn a little bit of what's super timely for a lot of customers, and that would be to get into the console, use the free tier, and play around with Bedrock a little bit right now, right? In fact, there's even a Nova site. And so I'm not going to give you the best practices in developing a generative AI application. And I would say like the answer probably lay within learnings that you're getting, where you could inform some of our folks, because it's just such a fast moving space but getting in, learning, experimenting with our generative AI capabilities is absolutely a super useful thing to do. Because one of the things that we're so focused on right now as an organization is helping our customers not just understand how, you know, to implement things. We're working with what is it that you want to do with the generative AI solution. And I think creative ideas for customers come from people who are actually working with the technology and seeing it in practice, and puts you in a very good position to inform our customers first on the what before necessarily we even get to the how. And the how is probably the fastest moving space in technology today. And what's the how right this minute and what's the how in a month and a half from now might actually be quite different. So I'd be very careful in trying to tell you what today's best practice is. It's a fast moving place.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you asked Steve that question like December, he couldn't answer it. You know, he wouldn't think of agentic AI, let's say that. But right now, you couldn't answer anything without. So it just changes exactly as Steve said. I do want to thank Steve. I know we're a minute over. Thank you so much, Steve, for taking our time. Thank you so much for our attendees for participating and engaging. There will be a recorded copy of this available as well. And Steve's call to action, please connect on LinkedIn and please continue the conversation. But thank you, everyone, for the time.
Thanks, everyone. Happy Friday, and everyone have a great weekend.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.